Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about systems of linear inequalities. What you're going to want to have on you is your notes on that guided sheet I gave you in class. You're going to want some colored pencils or like colored pens or something that's going to help you distinguish the shading today. Calculator just for simple math, and then a ruler if you really want to make sure you draw some straight lines. What are your learning targets for today? So, you want to be able to, number one, graph linear inequalities. Then, we're also going to look at how to graph a system of linear inequalities. So basically, can we graph multiple things on one graph? So, graphing linear inequalities. This is the top of that little foldable I gave you, or that sheet of paper I gave you in class. First step we're going to take is we're going to graph the line like we normally would have graphed it. So we're going to find the slope, find the y-intercept, and graph it. Sometimes you may need to solve for y to graph that line. That's okay if you need to. It all depends on what form we're given. Then we need to decide, is it a solid or a dashed line? And we'll talk about that in a moment, which one is used for which inequality signs. Then we're going to shade one side of the line, either above the line or below the line, based on our inequality symbol. We're always going to have to check an ordered pair to see if it is good and it is an equation, or which side to shade. Number 4, don't forget, when you're solving, flip the inequality sign if dividing or multiplying by a negative. I know a lot of people forget about that, so be careful with that. Make sure you watch for that. And also, do not forget your horizontal and vertical lines. Don't forget, horizontal means it's going to be a y equals line. Vertical means it's going to be an x equals line. Don't forget about those special guys. Now, let's follow our steps here. We're going to first graph the line. So we're going to graph 2x minus 3y is less than 12. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to just treat it as 2x minus 3y is equal to 12. Let's first get it so it's y equals. So I'm going to write off to the side here. Minus 3y is less than 12. Looks like I need to subtract 2x to get y by himself. So I have negative 3y is less than negative 2x plus 12. It looks like I need to divide by that negative 3 on both sides. Now, since I divided by a negative, I do need to flip the inequality sign. Don't forget to flip the flipping sign. So let's flip that to a greater than. Then I'm going to divide the negative 3 into both pieces. So negative 2 over negative 3, that would be positive 2/3. And then 12 over negative 3, that's a negative 4. So this is the graph of the equation that I need to graph. So I'm going to start at negative 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 right here on my graph. And I got to go up 2 over 3, follow my slope. So up 2 to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to fill that out from all of the graph here. As much room as I can make it. Alright, now before you draw in the line, we need to decide, is it solid? AKA, is it going to be just a line with just straight line, no breaks in it? Or are you going to have a dashed line? Two reasons for why you would have a solid. You have to either be less than or equal to, or you need to be greater than or equal to. So, the way I think of it, solid line, you have to do it twice. You have to kind of like, remember when you would do inequality and you would graph them on a number line? And you guys would draw the circle and you would fill in the circle because it was equal to. Same thing, you're closing the line up. Dashed line is either a less than or a greater than. So in this case, we are going to have a greater than. So we're going to have to do a dashed line, which means I can't make a solid line. I gotta kind of do this on my line here. There we go. Now, we need to, number 3 told us we needed to check or shade. Now to shade, we need to know, are we going to shade above here or below here? To do that, to check your shading, you're going to want to plug in the ordered pair 0, 0 into the original equation. So into this guy right here, we're going to plug 0, 0 in. Why 0, 0? It is the easiest point to plug in for anything. The only problem you have to worry about is if your line goes straight through 0, 0, then you have to pick a different point to choose from. However, most lines do not go through 0, 0, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. But keep it in mind is if your line does go through 0, 0, you do have to pick a different ordered pair to pick to check for shading. So if I put my 0 in, I'm going to get 2, 0 minus 3 times 0 is less than 12. Here's the best thing about 0. These guys are going to cancel off, make me a 0. And then I need to ask myself, is this a true statement? Is 0 less than 12? Yes, that's a true statement, right? 0 is less than 12, which means on my graph I can shade on the side that 0, 0 is. So I can draw or kind of color on this side of my line. That is me showing that that's where all the solutions of this inequality 2x minus 3y less than 12 exist. So all inequalities above that line exist there. Now, what are we going to be mostly getting to? We're going to be graphing a system of equations. We've already done that. That's when you got a point where the lines intersected. So you got an x comma and a y, right? Where we're going is a solution of system linear inequalities, which means if I have two inequalities that we just kind of graphed on that sheet of paper I gave you, and we graph them, and we shade because we checked in the point 0, 0, and then I graph the other line, and I shade in that side, what you are doing is technically finding a region of points where the shading intersects. So you're basically finding a solution to inequalities, but it's not going to be just a single point. It's going to be a range of points because where your shading intersects would be technically the solutions to this system of linear inequalities. So basically all you're doing is you're graphing multiple linear inequalities on one single graph. Let's try an example of this. So I got x plus y is greater than negative 3, and negative 6x plus y is less than 1. So let's do this first equation. Let's get that to be y alone. So I'm going to subtract x. I get y is greater than negative x minus 3, which tells me I'm going to start at the point negative 3, and then I'm going to go down 1 over 1 a whole bunch of times, right? Down 1 to the right 1. And I always try to go to the right for my slope first, just because I don't mess up my slope as bad if I find I do that. There we go. Now, next part of our graphing a linear inequality, we need to make sure solid or dashed line. In this case, it looks like it's going to be a dashed line, so let's go ahead and fill in that dashing. Definitely not to the best of my ability, but it's alright. Okay, now let's check our 0, 0 point. So checking. We're going to plug in 0 and 0. So 0 plus 0 is greater than negative 3, which is going to simplify down for me of 0 is greater than negative 3. Let's think of that. Is 0 greater than negative 3? Yeah, right? 0 is greater. So this is a yes, which means on the side of 0, 0, that side of this line, I get to sketch and color on that side with my red. Now, here's where those second colors come into play. Second color for the next equation, it's going to make it easier for you to see where they intersect. Otherwise, if you have the same color, it's not going to work out. So let's get this guy equal to 6x, or get this guy with y alone. So I'm going to add 6x. So I get y is less than 6x plus 1. I'm going to start at 1, up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, over 1. can't go up anymore. So I can go down 6 over 1, and then can't go down anymore. So it looks like it's going to be, and it's going to be a dashed line, so, ooh, this is a pretty bad dash line, but there we go. Something like that. So then I need to figure out my check for my blue line here. So let's plug in the point 0, 0. Notice, guys, 0, 0 is not being crossed by this line. It's kind of off to the side. It's probably like really close to 0, 0, but it's not going through it. So you do not have to worry about using it. So I got -6 times 0 plus 0 is less than 1. So I get 0 plus 0 is less than 1, or 0 is less than 1. And that's a true statement, right? 0 is in fact less than 1. So that means on this side of my line, where 0, 0 is going to be located, I'm going to sketch it. So what does this mean? Where is the final answer to the problem, you're probably asking? Well, my final answer to this system is right here, where I've colored in my highlighter. So that's where both of my shading intersects. That's why it's the system to this linear inequalities. And that's the end of this video. See you later, Sabers.